Dr. Abdoulie, can I bring you in here and ask you if you think that this apparent contradiction between short-term fossil fuels but still remaining on track for decarbonization, is this, how can this be resolved?
Thank you, Madam. I hope you hear me.
Yep.
First, I just want to preface any short answer I might give you by saying that thanking my good friend Abdullah for organizing this dialogue. I think COP27 is being referred to as Africa's COP, and will have a substantial impact on the future of our countries. As the event approaches, following some of these most urgent considerations for African leaders. So I thought maybe what we should put on the table is really, what are we going to push our leaders to bring to change the narrative, and that from not double talk of do as I say and not as I do. And I think that's where we are now. I think we have had several COPs and we have had several decisions and several recommendations and so on. But now this has been impacted by some of these issues you raised. The conflict in Ukraine, which is impact on Africa, is colossal, really colossal. The broken supply chain and energy and how we can then factor this into any new discussions at COP and really find solutions to this. It's going to be our challenge, and therefore, I believe that our continent needs to adapt an uncompromising and steadfast climate adaptation goal. We must not deviate from that. I think we should try as a continent to really speak as one voice, to preempt a strategy on how to deal with our standard assets, of which fossil fuel is a major component, and then making climate finance the cornerstone of climate action. Finance, somebody raised it. The EU had promised that they are going to give us 150 million or 150 billion. We still haven't seen the color of those resources yet, and I hope that this will materialize. And then finally, that we must prepare ourselves to unleash the potential for strategic exploitation of our green minerals. That's important. While at the same time, the standard commodities have the fossil fuel and so on will continue to because its impact, the lack of utilization, which we had been following before, given the data that we are getting from our partners, would be devastating for our country. So we must find this balance, between given the current situation, given the Russian and Ukraine war, the impact on resources and so on, rethink of what will be our strategy. And if we have this as one voice and we go and insist on this, I think that would be the way forward if COP27 is going to be a meaningful encounter that we all expect it to be.
You're saying that if finance is not at the center of it, it will deliver less than it should?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This finance thing has been bugging us for quite a while, since the Copenhagen Cup, where they told Africa, we expect $100 billion of resources coming your way. It never materialized. Then they started changing narrative. Or when we said $100 million, we did not say this was coming from public coffers. We are saying it is a totality of what the private sector will do and so on. And now, very literally something, very minimal something. So it is, the finance is critical, madam.
Right.
If you do not have financing, particularly at this point in time where we have the impact of the war, which is catastrophic. We don't have time to go into all that. It's against the background of COVID where our economics collapsed, collapsed. So if we do not put emphasis on financing, what else? What else? This is the most critical factor, the most critical element, the most critical consideration that we must put on the table to move forward on this agenda.
Thank you, thank you. Dr. Abdullah, if I can bring you back also and ask you, what are your expectations given the global economic situation? Yes, COP is happening in Egypt, and yes, Egypt is very vocal about promoting adaptation and making the funds available. But do you think it will happen?
Yeah, I am optimistic. I think Egypt is a very focused country, but I think Egypt should also try to rally African countries together so that really we do not dissipate our energy, that we have one strong voice in there and talk about justice, particularly where really emissions are not even 2% of what's happening and so on. So I have faith that our concerns would be squarely put on the table in this closed door that we are saying that the African voice will continue to be heard. Having said that, Madam, I still want to go back on financing for all aspects, particularly transition period, financing for adaptation. I think is vital. And if you look at the history of promises for financing, it's abysmal as far as Africa is concerned, because we had said Copenhagen was 100 billion. It's now you're telling us 80% of that has been done. If you look at the distribution, it's very skewed. Africa is getting minimal amount from that. As a follow-up to that, the European Union had announced an investment plan of 150 billion, and we want to see where that is. I hope that this will be on the table that when we are in Sharm el-Sheikh, and that others would follow this great announcement, this great commitment, and so on, and that Africa would not be shortchanged on this. I think it's vital we do that. But financing, justice, I think are critical for our continent. I hope that Egypt will be able to rally its fellow leaders in Africa so that in this closed shop, we will be able to push and get closure on some of those key issues that are affecting the continent at a time when our economies are collapsing. The effect of COVID, the effect of the war in Ukraine and so on, it's abysmal. I'm telling you, see in West Africa now, we have 5 coup d'etats already. So if you want to make sure that our continent, our country-state stand and in a way that they will continue to be viable states, these are the issues that we hope will come out of the Sharm el-Sheikh COP. But I'm optimistic that maybe we will not get everything we want, but that significant progress will be made. I have great faith in Egypt and the rest of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much.